Up next on Inside ChampCar, almost breaking news and a chat with Bernie Myers. Welcome to the Inside ChampCar podcast. I'm Brian Bielanski.
And I'm Bill Strong.
And we are here to do the fourth episode. Eventually we'll have so many episodes I'll forget the number. But episode 4 of Inside ChampCar. A little later in the show, Bernie Myers is going to join us. He's from Blue Shells Racing and a former team manager and crew chief for Dayle Coyne Racing in their IndyCar, ChampCar, whatever they called it at the time, kart programs.
I liked kart.
I did too.
That's just me.
I do too. He's going to join us for what turned out to be a really, really long and amazing interview, but really long in all the best ways. So you're going to want to.
He gave all the secrets out.
Yes,
you have to stay. You have to stay tuned.
He did
all the secrets.
Anyway, so we're going to get to that here.
We told him we weren't recording.
I know. We lied. We lied. No. So we're going to get to that in just a little bit. But before that, we have some breaking news, or almost breaking news. This is exciting.
You got to do the breaking news bulletin.
You're going to have to come up with that sound effect.
I know. Yeah. So the summer of 24s is back at the, the ChampCar employees. Not so much happy about it, but the racers are. 2 24s this year. We're doing Nelson Ledges. The longest day of Nelson Ledges is back on the schedule. 24 hours of racing at the famed Nelson Ledges track,
or the infamous.
Well, infamous too, but it is so fast now. They repaved it, new ownership. It got a repave. They've got new buildings going up. Even Control. I'm being told that Control is being redone inside, because the last time we were there, all the walls were gone. So hopefully they're back, because it was cold. But it's in the middle of summer. It is July 15th through the 17th. We have a test day on Friday. You're allowed to move in there on Thursday, Friday test day, Saturday and Sunday, 24 hours of absolutely insane speed racing, because I don't think you hit the brakes on that road course at all. I mean, it's just go as fast as you can.
So back in the day, that was, if you thought Sebring was bumpy, that Sebring is a pool table compared to Nelson Ledges.
Well, I don't know about that, but I actually last night I was watching a video of a race we did. We were leading the race at Nelson Ledges, the 24-hour, and we ended up breaking a hub broke.
Right.
Of course, that's my thing. And my guy put it in the tire walls. That track is famous for the billions of tires that are spread around to help keep you in the racetrack. Though I have seen cars hit those and launch and space shuttle, style liftoffs. But
you test your dental work at Nelson Ledges.
Oh yeah, that time that track was really bumpy. There was potholes. You had to dodge the concrete flying off the tires from the car in front of you. And if you got off into the grass, they had so much rain a couple of times when we raced there that if you got into the grass, you were stuck there for a while. We may not have found you because you would have sunk somewhere.
Yeah.
Or you just got lost and you never turned the wheel trying to correct. You just went straight, because if you turn the wheel, you would dig in and flip the car, which happened a couple of times.
Gotcha.
Now they have done some serious drainage fixes at that track. We don't have those issues anymore with basically Lake Nelson. Yeah. It's the road surface. The track surface was completely repaved. There's some of the bumps, the things that make it a racetrack have come back from settling, but other than that, it's super fast. And so the times, I think, were, for our race cars, I think it was like a 7-second faster track than it was previous races we had done there.
So what's the dates?
July 15th through 17th for Nelson Ledges, and then we're back in August, which is, let me pull that up because I don't know this by heart. August 12th through the 14th, which is at Virginia International Raceway. That's a test day in a 24-hour. That's a classic 24. That's the one we do on full course. And that's the one that you bring good lighting, because nothing is as dark as VIR dark.
And speaking of lighting, our tech tip a little bit down the road here is going to be about lighting. So we're going to talk about that coming up too. So is Nelson a true 24 or is it a 12 and 12? Or is it broke up?
Both of them are 224s.
Got it.
If we're doing a 24, we're doing a 24-hour. There's none of this half-ass stuff. It's full bore, buddy. All
right.
Man, it's bring your big boy pants because it's or big girl pants too.
Yes.
Or big whatever pants. It's just it's one of those track, and you have to be prepared. It's there's not a lot of part stores around that area.
Sure.
So bring your stuff and be prepared to do some welding at night and fixing those cars and fixing those bits from racing.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up for ChampCar is the Oak Tree 12-hour. What do we need to know for that?
Sign up at night.
It's at night.
It's at night. Yeah, it's currently we have 28 cars signed up, and that's about what we usually have, 30 to 34 cars, and we'll get more as we go. That's going to be an exciting race. It always comes down to the very end. First time I ran that, it was between me and James Clay and his Bimmer World guys. They ended up beating us, and I still think they kind of beat us they pitted on the start-finish line, so I think they got credit for some laps. I was told they did, but that would have been our first race win. But we finished second that race, and we have a bunch of folks coming down. Bliss Racing in their Camaros, who I've raced with a couple of times. Great crew, man. These guys are awesome to race with, so laid back, and they've got Camaros. Nothing's better than a Camaro sound.
Nice.
Although the Mustang guys will say different. But we have who else is going? Full Send Racing will be there. Hammered Racing, Maximum Efforts there with their Mazda Miata. The Prancing Donkey Racing, love that. RVA Graphics with both cars there this weekend, and that's kind of my favorite car for that weekend. They'll do really well. Sparrow Speed, Tag Racing, the Stug is there. Oh, and the Enterprise is back. That's that big LTD that races with us. He was supposed to be at the last race, but I guess couldn't make it. Virginia Tech will be there with their brand new Ford Focus SVT.
Nice.
Virginia Tech, I keep telling them they need to really change their colors to blue and orange.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen.
No, they don't have enough UVA stickers on it. But I may stick a UVA sticker on that car one day
when they're not looking.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wild Hair Racing and their Miata. But there's a lot of Miatas and E30s at this track. Oh, there's Prancing Donkey Racing and their 85 Trans Am. So we're going to see some big V8s against little cars. So that's going to be a fun race.
Does Prancing Donkey play Dominic the Donkey in the pits during the race? Because that's what they should do.
I don't know what you mean by that.
You don't know Dominic the Donkey?
No.
Oh, that's one of the best Christmas songs ever.
Okay.
I'll have to share that with you next time.
I'll take your word for it.
All right. You wanted to talk a little bit about Sonoma.
Oh, wait. We forgot. CMP Racing will be there too. Now, CMP also has a driver with them every now and then, not every race, but that would be Kenny Schroeder.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of famous within the NASCAR.
Who? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Love Kenny Schroeder.
If Kenny's free from the NASCAR commitments or whatever, the circle track stuff, where he makes his money,
right?
He'll be out probably racing with those guys. He's always a laugh and a trip to hang out with because he has some stories.
Oh gosh, he's one of the best interviews you'll ever have. So we should get him on the show sometime.
Yeah, we can. I should be able to. Yeah,
that'd be great. You wanted to talk a little bit about Sonoma.
Yep. Sonoma's coming up. When is that?
It's May 6th and 8th.
Yes.
May 6th through the 8th.
So currently we have a couple of cars signed up. We'd like to have a few more because, a race is just more than two cars.
Right.
And we have to get you guys out there. And I know the Californians, they're a little more laid back and they're really not thinking about racing right now. They're out doing their, riding four-wheelers out in the desert and, kind of trying to worrying about that $5 a gallon gasoline. Is it pretty expensive out there?
It's up there. Yeah, it's the cheap gas is right around a $4.30 a gallon now.
So,
sorry.
But it's a thing.
So fill up in Nevada before you make it up to Sonoma, and hope you can get back to Nevada before you leave. After you leave Sonoma, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So
we have that race going on. We're trying to get some more California races going, but
sure.
It's it's difficult this time of year, but
right.
we'll see what happens.
Also want to take a second and remind everyone that if you want to go to the Ozarks on April 29th through the May 1st, that's the national championship race, and you want the early pay discount, you have to pay before February 28th. That'll be about a week and a half after this episode airs. So if you're thinking about going to the Ozarks, you haven't signed up yet, and you want to have that discount, you got to do that before the 28th of February.
And the cool thing about our national championships, you don't have to be in the national championships to run it. You can still run for the overall win of the thing.
Sure.
But you're just not going to get the really cool trophy and the gifts.
The cooler trophies.
Yeah, yeah. But, I mean, it's still pretty darn cool trophies. They say we have some of the best trophies in the business. Currently we have for Ozarks 50 cars signed up.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty wild. And I would say a third of those cars are teams that are in the championship.
Right.
So.
Got you. All right, let's go to the tech tip. Tech tip time. We got some night racing coming up, and you have a variation on a theme of what I used to do when getting ready for a night race. But your idea is to take it another step, and what we're talking about now is obviously you have to put lights on the car, or at least have the lights that are on the car working because you're doing a night race. But what happens if one of those lights goes out? 5 minutes in.
So one of the things that we're seeing is that teams really focus on the headlights because, you're headed in racing, you're only going forward. You're not going backwards. You're going forward.
Right.
They don't pay as much attention to the brake lights. And those are normally incandescent bulbs, whereas the headlights are using LEDs or just HIDs or whatever. But they can take shaking a lot more than what the taillights can. And the taillights tend to take a backseat to all the other stuff. So usually what we do is we put in all brand new bulbs in the back, make sure all the wiring is good, not rusted out and, from that flood car you bought, but make sure all the bulbs work. But we also put some spare bulbs back there. What I do is we take a piece of foam, that foam you get when you ship something, the poppy things.
Yeah. Popcorn.
No, not popcorn, the
bubble wrap.
Yeah, bubble wrap.
Okay.
So we take a couple of bulbs, spares, and we put them in the bubble wrap, and we tape it to a safe place in the trunk.
Oh, okay.
Either on the trunk lid, though if your trunk lid sort of flies off, you're kind of without that. But the parcel shelf up under there, somewhere safe and accessible that you can grab a spare bulb real quick and replace it in pit lane. You're not running to your trailer looking for the spare thing when the guy's telling you it's in the truck glove box. You're it's there in the car. You don't have to run it. We also run a spare gas cap down underneath there.
Nice.
We just in case, because nothing's worse than at 2:00 in the morning. You take off that gas cap and that wire that was holding it to the car breaks or something happened and the gas cap just rolls under the car. Of course, nobody has good lighting on pit lane and it rolls off and you can't find it. So you're spending there 10 minutes looking for another gas cap. It's up under the car. Same with the taillights.
Yeah.
And we do some we also had some tape. One year we had some issues with before we ran the LEDs, we put that tape to fix headlights. Yeah. Or taillights, sorry, fix taillights and brake lights. We had a roll of that under there too, so that we could pull that out and put it over the brake lights, turn something into a brake light.
Sure.
To do that.
So here's a question. Again, I'm the new guy. Could I put like an auxiliary LED brake lights and tail lights on the car and just bypass the regular ones so you've got that long lasting LED, doesn't deal with the shakes kind of thing?
Well, that's what we did. Is I ended up getting what do you call it? The trailer lights.
Okay.
That was another thing a lot of guys did in the early days of ChampCar and Lemons was we just ran trailer lights.
Yeah.
They were cheap. They were bright. They were easy to wire. And so I took that a step further and got LED trailer lights.
Yeah.
The strip.
Right.
And then I bolted a couple of those to the tail light housing.
Yeah.
And that worked fine. Now, like a lot of guys are getting really fancy now and get like NLS Racing last weekend has some of the coolest looking tail lights.
Right.
They got these round ones that have little star patterns coming out when you hit the brake lights.
Right.
And I remember everybody on pit lane was like, wow, those are some cool lights, man. We need to look at getting some of those.
Yeah. I was thinking of like the strip of lights on the deck lid, like the trunk lid, where you could just put like a strip of red LEDs and
Oh, yeah,
wire
you
them
can
in
get
as
those-
brake lights
yeah.
and just
Yeah,
kind
you-
of completely. Is that legal?
Technically, I mean, you can.
See, I'm already trying to figure out how to screw with the rule book.
Well, it's not really screwing. As long as you have two distinct brake lights
Right.
and two distinct,
Tail lights.
tail lights.
Right.
You're good to go. I mean, you couldn't light up the whole back of your car because I mean, it has to be two separate lights. So
There's got to be a way.
yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, we've seen guys do that.
Yeah.
It's a cheesy way to. I would use automotive stuff.
Yeah.
That can take the vibrations because a lot of that stuff you buy off eBay or
Right.
Craigslist or whatever. Some of it's just not designed for automotive work, and they tend to vibrate.
And you could take those LEDs out of the trailer lights and just put them into the stock lighting housing.
You could, but listen to this.
Okay.
If you get into a wreck or somebody hits your back bumper, you've now got to rebuild that during the race.
Oh, yeah.
If you get something that's stock or either stock or readily available that you can just pull out, bolt another one on, you're good to go.
Yeah. Good point.
Quick.
Good point.
You want to keep it easy and simple to replace and not have to customize something or have multiple custom ones built. Keep it simple.
All right.
And cheap. That keeps it cheap.
Keep it simple and cheap. Words
Spares,
to live by.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys go, well, that's extra weight in my car with all these spares sitting in there.
Yeah.
You got to have a choice, man. It's, you could clip them to the inside of the toolbox, but that toolbox jumping around in your trailer when you're hitting those potholes going through Chicago, that's those bulbs are going to get broke.
Right. So you could save a second a lap over the course. Not even that. I don't think it would be a second a lap over the course of the entire race. Or you could spend 3 minutes trying to find the parts you need in the trailer to put it on the car.
Well, longer than that because your trailer's usually on the other side of the paddock.
Sure. So, I mean, it's a trade-off. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. When we come back, we are going to talk with Bernie Myers in what turned out to be a great, much longer than I don't think we anticipated it being long. We really did.
No.
Yeah, we did. We knew we were going to have tons of questions. Anyway, when we come back, Bernie Myers joins us. This is Inside Champ Car.
Every race weekend, you don't know what's going to happen. But with ChampCar.live, all the action comes right into your living room. The ChampCar Endurance Series is North America's home to real competitive endurance road racing. And ChampCar.live brings you live, full race coverage with in-car, trackside cameras, interviews, and expert commentary. And ChampCar.live brings you live, full race coverage with in-car and trackside cameras, interviews, and expert commentary. Check out ChampCar.live on the web, subscribe, and ring the bell so as not to miss a single minute of the action. It's fun, free, informative, and it's just a click away. ChampCar.live. Come check us out. We bring you a front row seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Welcome back to Inside Champ Car. He's Bill Strong. I'm Brian Bielanski. Joining us now, Bernie Myers. He's a member of Blue Shells Racing Team. He's also a former team manager and crew chief for Dayle Coyne Racing's IndyCar program. Yes, that IndyCar program, the Champ Car before Champ Car. Welcome, Bernie.
Wait.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. It's hope everything's well with everybody. First thing I want to say is this is just a great idea, the Champ Car podcast. The cars, the parts, the hardware, that's all one thing. But the people and the stories, that's something I'm really going to be looking forward to listening to in the upcoming podcasts. So congrats.
Well, thank you. I'm just happy that Bill thought of me when he decided he wanted to do something like this, and we were able to make it work out. I love talking cars. I love talking racing. I love the people. After 30 years of doing this, everyone says, I tell people the cars are great, but I go to the racetrack every weekend because I have family there, and none of those family are related to me, but they all are related to me. So it's all part of the deal. So,
sure. Yeah, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. My whole life has been spent in motorsports. Everything I have is because of that. I found my wife at the Indianapolis 500, and we got married shortly after that. And I've been not a paid driver, but I've been a paid mechanic and a paid team manager, and paid director of competition at some of the local races, and now I'm getting paid to build race cars. So it's been a part of my entire life.
That's right. I started at age 16. I was a crew chief on my dad's Formula V. And my entire knowledge was how to change the oil and how to change the tires, and I was the crew chief because I was all that was there. So, it's how a lot of us got started. Bill, you look quizzical.
Yeah, I'm at a loss. You started off this podcast by saying there was something prior to our Champ Car. I don't get that.
There is that, and then there's that. So let's talk about that first. Bernie, you have a long and storied history before coming to the current iteration of ChampCar. And you basically lived my dream, which I still dream about, working in the pits, in the garage for an IndyCar team. And so let's go back to the beginning. How did you get started in racing just in general before you even got to IndyCar? Because I'm sure that didn't happen overnight.
No, in high school, I was a petroleum transportation engineer. I pumped gas at an Amoco station. And the owner, Tom Turek, and Mike Montgomery, they had Turek, Montgomery, C-Gas, Monza. So my first experience was NHRA. They had a couple of seasons where they had the class ET record, and they did well. I took, and being I was working, at junior and senior in high school, I didn't really care to go to college. I took up an apprenticeship at a body shop, and I learned that craft. A lot of my friends were mechanics and had Chevys, while I was a body man and had a Ford. So I had to do things a little bit differently. So I learned how to paint and do body work, and I painted Turek and Montgomery's car. They soon after the Mazda was sold, they bought a really nice state-of-the-art Firebird that we painted up in silvers and blues, and it was real pretty. And in 1988, NHRA ended up putting that car in their rule book. So that was pretty neat to see your work out there that was recognized. So,
wait a second. You didn't go to an engineering program at some big university that specialized in super fantastic aerodynamic stuff, but you just started out as a proper mechanic.
I learned everything the hard way. Made a lot of mistakes along the way. Learned the craft as best as I could. Had a lot of great people that I worked with to teach me things, and was a lot. I don't think I've ever worked a day in my life. I mean, everything I've done has always been fun. I've enjoyed everything I've done, and getting back to your question, I just was all by doing things by experience, trial and error, making mistakes, learning what you can, and improving on it.
So when did you make the graduation from that to IndyCar?
But just in the early '80s. Dayle Coyne needed a Super V painted. He bought a Super V from Allenser Jr., and he was campaigning that. I think it was 81, about that time. And Dayle was dating a friend of mine's sister. We grew up together and lived in the same neighborhood, went to school, and he was dating Gail Coyne, which they eventually became married, and they're still married today. So I painted the car for Dayle.
Now, was Dayle still racing then? He hadn't actually just retired and running the team. He was actually still racing the cars, right?
He was doing SCCA stuff. He had a Cosworth Vega. He was doing some showroom stock things, and they bought the Super V and campaigned that for a couple of years. So I had painted that, and he invited us to go to Milwaukee to watch. They were a part of the IndyCar race that was there a week after Indianapolis. So we go to the race, and they have their race early Sunday morning, maybe Saturday afternoon. I don't remember, but we stayed for the IndyCar race. And I went. We had passes to go, pretty much do what we wanted. So during the race, I went and sat on the wall by AJ Foyt's pit, and he's a guy. Obviously, was an icon, and I looked up to for so many years, like as so many other drivers. So I'm sitting in the pit wall, and here he comes in to do a pit stop, and the car stops. Car goes in the air. All the heat's rising from it. The fuel's going in. You hear the high revving wheel guns, the hubs, the wheels banging up against the hubs, flames out the back. And I saw this and I said, man, this is something I got to do. I mean, it was just, it really took me back. So Dayle finished the season with his Super V, and he called me up in the winter and said, hey, I'm thinking of getting into IndyCar racing. You want to help? And I said, well, I don't think he finished the sentence. And I was already saying, yeah, let's go. So he bought a 1981 Eagle.
Yeah.
We campaigned the stock blocks for for several years, maybe 6-7 seasons after that. And he had a house.
Was that the Chevy stock blocks?
It was. Yeah.
Because you were the only
based
team.
On it.
You were the only team using the Chevy stock block at one point.
No, initially there was a couple.
Because everyone was using the Cosworths, right?
Cosworth was the popular engine back then, but the Chevrolets were really economical. We were working out of Dayle's 4-car garage. He would rebuild the engines. I would take care of the chassis and the oiling system and, do all the maintenance and everything on that. We had a couple of helpers that would come do it, but basically it was just him and I for a few years. And the Gurney Eagle was a great car for a stock. It was made for a stock block. So it really worked well. I think we struggled making races early on. We were a small team, didn't have a lot of money. It was tough to compete against the Cosworths, but there was a few times we did well.
Going to that, we have with our current iteration of ChampCar, you show up to a race, you're in if you can get that car across start finish line. But with IndyCar, and the top level, you had to qualify. And if you didn't qualify, you basically loaded up your car and went home. And this happened to you guys a lot, right?
It happened an awful lot. There was, some places would take 28 cars, depending on pit space. 24 were qualified, and there was 4 promoters options where they would always take the fastest guys that didn't make the race. So there was several times there'd be 30 cars, 32, 34 cars. So there was a lot of guys that went home, especially Indianapolis. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of races early on where we went home.
What's the feeling on that drive home? Because I've been to races where, you do well up until like maybe the 3rd or 4th hour and boom, you're loading up on the trailer because just something stupid happened. But what's that feeling like on that drive home with you and the team? Just like, what can we do to make this thing better? It's not working.
It was tough, honestly, but we all kept our heads up. We tried to make the car better every time that it went out. We weren't going to give up by any means. Dayle was really one of the last privateers, so to speak, that made it into IndyCar racing. We had competed in enough races that I think in 83 or 84, there was appearance money. So you'd get money for each car that came, and that really helped to pay the bills and helped us to, step up the program a little bit. But and after that, then, it just became very, very expensive. And there's a lot of car owners that have come and gone over the years. They've, they had $2 million, but they spent $5 million. And, after buying all the cars and fancy transporters and all that, they were never around. But Dayle, he always spent what he had. If he had $100,000, that was his budget. If it was $4 million, that was his budget. So I got to give him credit for sticking in there through all the years. But things turned around. The stock block, we ran a 355 cubic inch engine at the card events. We were able to run a 390 at the Speedway. The Speedway was pretty leaning towards stock block engines and the Buick V6 turbo program and all that. So there was one year we went to Indianapolis with a 390. And
it wasn't a 391 though. It was a 390.
It wasn't a 391. It was a 390. It was based on the 355, but we had a big crank in it.
I'm trying to get the scoop.
But we made a ton of horsepower. Bobby Rahal was running a stock block at the time. Penske was developing a stock block. There was an advantage to it on the road courses, but not on the super speedways and the big tracks. So we had Barnes. It was all aluminum block. Dan Gurney cast oil pan. We had Barnes heads on it. Barnes is still a company that makes oil pumps and that for sprint cars and things.
So we
would dyno our engine at Ron Shaver's in California. He was the guy that built many V8 engines for sprint cars and World Outlaw cars and that. And he would never let us dyno during the day when his customers were around. We always had to do it at night because we'd put the needle in the gray area on his dyno where he wasn't at. So he had to, we only had to do it at night. So we made great power, but there was valve train problems and oiling problems, and the work to on-track fun was pretty limited because we were always working on the car. But they were great days. I mean, we were a crowd favorite. Everybody liked the noise.
Right.
And we were a small team trying to run with the big guys. So the stock block days were fun. I enjoyed all of them.
So as a chief mechanic, what was your job? Was it just everything, or was it your focus the engine, making it work, or transmission, or just everything on the car?
In those days, everybody on the team had to do a little bit of everything. Now everything's pretty specialized. You have a gearbox guy, you have a shock guy, you have a front end guy. a guy that takes care of the carbon. Back then, we had to do a lot of everything, and that's something that I did. I would, as I said, Dayle did the engines back then with the stock block, and then I would prep the car. We also had we had motorhome with a pull-behind trailer behind it for several years, and then as things evolved, I started out as a mechanic, went to a crew chief in charge of one car and one driver and all that. And then for the most of the time I spent at Dayle Coyne, I was team manager, where I would oversee all the cars, all both transporters, our hospitality bus, all the guys, make sure the parts were mileaged out, parts were there to be replaced when needed. I always changed outside front tire on Sundays. I enjoyed my time doing pit stops, bit of race strategy. So there was I was in charge of putting all the decals on the car. So if you missed a decal and that part of the car was shown on TV with no decal, you heard about it for a long time.
I know all about that, Bernie. I know all about that.
Well, an outside front tire changer, that's the job that requires a whole lot of courage.
Yeah,
because you're essentially being your driver's driving towards you. You are pretty much in the crosshairs right until the last second, and they move over and pull in. That's got to take some. What was that like?
Well, I prided myself on pit. I'm going to brag a little bit. I was really good at changing the front tire, and we practiced. I probably changed tens of thousands of tires back at the shop, just practicing and practicing and practicing. I could do it in a really big hurry, make a wing adjustment, watch over the guys, make sure there was no traffic coming, and let the guy go. So I was really good at changing it. But early on, there was no pit speed limit. We didn't wear helmets. We're at Indy at the beginning of the pit lane. Cars are flying by your ankles as you're standing on your knees, changing the tire at 120 miles an hour, 125 miles an hour. No helmets. Yeah. But we didn't care. I mean, that's how it was. That's what we did. We weren't really nervous about it. There were times where there was some close calls. In 1990, we had Dean Hall. That was actually the first time we had made Indianapolis, and he did a great job of qualifying and whatnot. And during the race, he came in for one of his last pit stops, and he was a bit fatigued. It's a long race, first time he did it, and his brakes were cold. He came into our pit box, locked him up, hit the rear tire that was sitting out there waiting for him, bent a push rod, and took us out. But that tire went by inches, so it was it was hairy at times. And then we moved to pit lane speed limits, and everybody had to wear helmets, and things became much safer. There was a time there where everything was so competitive. Today things are competitive in a different way. Right. Back then things were so close because of different chassis, different engine manufacturers. Everybody's fighting for ounces of weight and RPM, and the only place to pass was in the pit lane. So drivers were taking a lot of chances. And,
sure.
Drivers, crew members started to get hit and injured, so they had to. If you hit a crew member back then, you were done for the day. So they started to get pretty serious about it. I think it was the accident at Long Beach between Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi. Emerson went over the top of Michael.
Oh, yeah.
Long Beach is really narrow curve pit lane. So after that is when they started to slow the cars down in the pit lane.
So the thing that always impressed me about Dayle Coyne racing was Dayle Coyne drove his first IndyCar race back in, I guess, what was it, 84, right?
Yep, 84.
And the team didn't win a race until 2009 with Justin Wilson. I'm not good with math, but that's got to be, what's that, 25 years? 20 years?
It was a long time.
and so the two things are going through my mind, because I've always been impressed with the smaller teams who just get out there and make it happen, is, first of all, a lot of teams would have just quit.
A lot of teams did.
A lot of teams wouldn't be able to get enough money to go racing. A lot of teams did. But somehow Dayle Coyne kept finding ways to get the money, whatever it needed, to still put cars on the racetrack. How did he do that?
That's true, and that goes back to a little bit to what I was saying. He only spent what he had.
Right.
A lot of guys overspent themselves and got themselves in a lot of trouble. But he only spent what he had. I didn't add them up, but I bet he's had 100 drivers over the last. And he's going on 41 years, I think, maybe 42 years of competing.
he was also known as a development team for future drivers. I mean, or for drivers that would ultimately go on to do quite well, like Roberto Moreno and just a whole list of drivers that started out with Dayle Coyne.
And mechanics and engineers. He prides himself on that, and I do too. We went to Indianapolis with a lot of rookies over the years, and we had a lot of rookies in the kart series, but that was fine. I was okay to that. There were times where it was frustrating and aggravating, but I look back on it now and I say, hey, at least we gave that guy a chance,
right?
That maybe never would have been somewhere else and had the opportunity to go. We gave Paul Tracy his first ride. Right. He did Long Beach in 1991. His father paid for the ride. It was something we didn't have an opportunity to offer him, but we gave him his first ride. Roger Penske noticed him, and off he went. And he had a great career with Penske and Newman Haas Racing for a season. You mentioned Roberto Moreno. He was getting up there in age. We gave him an opportunity. He gave me my best finish of third at the US 500 in 1996, and it was like we won the race.
Oh, yeah.
The crew was so happy to be on the podium for the first time, and it was those little things like that. One year we had Eric Bachelart and Alessandro Zampedri. We finished 7th and 8th at Long Beach.
Yeah.
In the top, both cars in the top 10. So it's a lot of stuff like that are little, small victories that allow you to persevere and keep going. So we never gave up. I mean, anytime I've got, one story I do have is in 92, we ran Brian Bonner and Eric Bachelart at the Speedway with Buick engines, and they were flawless. We ran all month long, all kinds of miles. Second qualifying weekend, we pushed Brian Bonner off with 610 miles on that car, on that engine, which was unheard of. So we had a great, reliable, fantastic year. Unfortunately, 92 was a cold day. All the Andretti's crashed. We crashed. It was I think of the first lap was Stan Fox's horrible accident. So it was a great year for us. So we go back in 93 with 4 Buick cars, 3 drivers, and we broke everything. We crashed cars. We had fires. All our 3 drivers were in the Methodist hospital in the same room one time or another. It was just a horrible, horrible, horrible year. And we didn't make the race. Those days we'd go to Indy at the end of April and do rookie orientation. And then, so you're there 1 week already. Next week's opening weekend, then you got a week of practice, and you got first qualifying, second qualifying. So we were there 7 weeks. We'd stay after Indy and get ready for Milwaukee. So we spent a lot of time and devoted a lot of time to Indy. And when we didn't make it in 93, when we were done, the gun went off Sunday night. Everybody was just spent and exhausted. I sat on the pit wall and cried my eyes out for all the, it's just so, Indy's so emotional. And it was just crazy. But we gathered ourselves up. We got new cars. We showed up with a new hospitality bus and trailer at the next race at Milwaukee. So again, anytime we were down, everybody just pulled themselves together, and we got, we generally always better the next time around.
So when you went to the Indy 500, I think it was 93, 94, when, you have that, when you go to the track, I'm going to win that. We're going to win this. And we have everything to do this, to get the big trophy, and we're there. And then Penske shows up with that Mercedes Ilmor. I mean, what did that feel like? I think the PC23 or something like that.
Yeah, the first year we went there, we tried Dayle Coyne in the stock block. We had an 86 March with a Chevy in it. We didn't make it because we had, the mechanical problems. We went there in 89 with a car trying to sell the ride, and that never happened. So 1990 was the very first time we made it. And that was with Dean Hall. He was a downhill ski racer. He won the Atlantics the year before. And Kazumichi Go from Japan, he runs an endurance team there. He also brought in, excuse me one second. I forget. He was with them 2 years ago. Alex Palou.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With Kazumichi Go, brought him to Coyne. So there's a long relationship there between Dayle and Kaz. And then, he ends up doing very well for Coyne, and he wins the championship last year. But regressing back to 1990, Dean Hall, that was the very first time ever we had a brand new car. We had a 90 Lola.
Oh, wow.
And in 1990, they changed the aerodynamic rules. You had to run a smaller tunnel. So everybody had their 89. A lot of guys had their 89 car with tunnel inserts that would, meet the rules. And everybody was crashing. A lot of Rutherford, John Cock, all the veterans were crashing pretty hard. And Dean was in our 89 and doing well. He would do 212, 214, more than enough to make the race. And that very first week, we prepped our 90 Lola because we were going to use it the second weekend. We passed up qualifying on the first round. So we prepped the 90 Lola the first week, ran the wheels off the 89. And cleverly, what Dayle had done is he, in order to make up for the reduced downforce, he simply softened the rear springs. And that's what made the car so fast. And it was kind of funny because, we had struggled for so much time, but we had guys at our garage door wanting setup sheets. Want to know what we were doing.
Yeah.
When you went to the bar at night, you had to be careful what you say to people. Yeah. I mean, because there was 45 cars there.
Yeah.
And if you gave somebody some advice, it's really easy for them to knock you out. So you had to be protective of what.
How many guys set up like easy chairs, little lawn chairs out in front of your garage?
Well, they drive by often in their golf carts and peer in.
Yeah.
Really slowly.
Really slow.
Yeah.
You're like, is your battery not charged on that golf cart? Because it's not going so fast. Not going so fast.
So how much effect did that Ilmore have on the Penske car have on pit lane?
It's amazing they kept that car such a secret. I mean, they ran thousands and thousands and thousands of miles at Nazareth and Michigan without anybody ever knowing it. And there was a loophole in the rules where you could run a lot of boost with a pushrod engine. Well, the pushrods are like an inch long or 2 inches long, so it was pretty minimal. He took advantage of the rules. I give him all the credit in the world for that. And that was fast car. I mean, they'd park it in the corners, but it was fast down the straights. And they won the Indy 500. And to show how things can change, the car was really horrible. The chassis was really, really bad, but the engine masked what Penske was doing. So the next year, in 95, Penske shows up. He doesn't make the race because the car is so ill-handled.
I remember that year.
Mile after mile.
I remember seeing Paul Tracy and Al Jr. and Emerson. I think it was those three sitting on the pit wall at the end looking just dumbstruck because they weren't in the Indy 500.
Yeah.
And nobody would have thought they'd ever been in that bad position. But the engine was so dominant the previous year, it just disguised how horrible the car was.
Yeah.
And getting back to one of the special things about Indy, on bump day, when you're walking down the pit lane, if you're lucky to be in already, you're kind of relaxed and you're looking forward to the race. But you see these drivers climbing in their cars and their eyes are glassed over and they're moving really slow and teams are getting desperate. They're taking wing out of the car and raising the car up. And if you're not fast on bump day or previous to that, it's virtually no way to really make up that ground and get in. So the guys are really taking chances. A lot of people got hurt qualifying. A lot of people got hurt in practice on bump day trying to make the field. So that was just one of the things that made Indianapolis what it was. There was 33 spots, but there was 45, 48 cars there every year. And there was one year we didn't make it, the year we tore everything up. But of the 6 seasons that we went there, we always made the race and did reasonably well with the drivers and the equipment that we had. And then the split happened, and everything kind of went south from that area for us.
Right.
But then it all came back again. But it all came back again. And a couple of years ago, you were able to attend Indianapolis yourself, but as a driver and mechanic, right? With Blue Shells at
that was
ChampCar.
When that was announced, there's no way we're going to miss it. And Dennis Neal, who is now a famous reality TV star, was the guy that would take care of all the registration, all that. He was up at midnight, got both cars registered, so we were in and going. We planned for Indy from I think October 1st.
Well, let's go back to that real quick. Let's go back to that. So to let you know what was happening. So myself, Mike Chiswick, Paul Velton, and I there may have been a couple other staff, but we were actually watching the registration system. That race sold out. We had 98. We capped it at 100 cars. We had 98 teams signed up in 14 minutes. There was a hiccup in the system, which which kept it, and it was ended up, I think, 19 minutes or something like that. I think the server kind of said, "Hey, wait a second, hold off," and so it ended up being officially 100 cars at 19 minutes. But it was insane watching the amount of registration. It's not easy registering for ChampCar. You actually have to have all your drivers pre-built in the system. You have to then the team captain has to go through and set it all up and then hit send and then pay the money and then finish off that stuff. So watching you guys do this, and I'm pretty certain everybody had it planned to the second. It's like, okay, at midnight, boom. And of course, we had all the folks out on the West thinking it was midnight West Coast. So they, it's like really people.
So what you're telling me is it was easier for me to get tickets to see Paul McCartney at the Dodger Stadium than it was to get into IndyCar's ChampCar race.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. It was pretty badass. I mean, it was, we had a lot of teams that were kind of new with ChampCar. They had to have, we required some experience, and we weren't letting just newbies come in. They had to have some experience, and there were some teams that we questioned about, but they ended up doing pretty well. But I think the main problem that event, because you were there, we just had so many arrive and drive teams that saw a way to make some cash.
Sure.
And brought in drivers that were more to the sprint race type. Fight every corner.
Right.
And that corner just happened to have a car sitting in it. And we saw a bunch of that stuff going on. But Bernie,
I looked forward to it ever since we registered for it.
Yep.
Our whole next season was based around Indianapolis. I called every driver that we've had, Bachelard and Zampedre and just every Michelle Jourdain.
Yep.
Everybody I knew come to Indianapolis and drive with us there. And Johnny Unser drove for us back in the early 90s. He had Ruger as a sponsor, Ruger Guns and Callaway Clubs.
Yep.
So I called Johnny, and because I knew Lonnie had been there before, and Johnny said, "Hell yeah, let's do this." So Lonnie came on board with us. We had our two cars. We had our black car and our silver car there. We had 10 drivers between the two cars, and we got Coyne's garages. I called up Terry Brown, the manager for team manager for Dayle Coyne at the time, and I said, "Hey, what garages are you in?" So we used her garages. They allowed us to use their garage signs. Mm-hmm. So we peeled their vinyl off their garage signs, put the blue shells up above our garage doors, and we wanted to take advantage of what Indy meant.
Sure.
To myself.
Well, there was a lot of us that didn't realize that, that's a big deal, is putting those signs up above your garage, that you could do that. We didn't know it. And, because I want to say that the majority of staff had never, ever been to Indy, with the exception of the visit that we had to do in the big meeting room with the big bosses that run the place. And, I kept pinching Chiswick. I was like, dude, are we really here? This is like insane.
Yeah, the first year we went to Indy, '89, I didn't go out to the pit lane until the car was ready to go. I stayed in the garage and stayed with the car and worked out and all that. So when I went out to under Gasoline Alley for the first time, it was sitting in the cockpit of a car being pulled by a golf cart, and it was just awestruck by the place. The grandstands. Back then there'd be a legitimate 450, 500,000 people there on race day, 100,000 on carb day or bump day. The place was just amazing. I mean, even just being a mechanic and a team manager, the place meant so much to us because of the time we spent there, because of the history, because of all the hard work and the dedication that drivers and mechanics and team owners put in through the years. The history alone is enough to give you goosebumps. So it was really special for me to go out and do the stints I did at Indy. Was just really, really incredible. I didn't want to get out of the car, but you guys limited me to 2 hours. But it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. The next, we did our black car, I think, won its class on Saturday. And I had a couple of mechanical issues I missed on Sunday. So we spent some time in the garage on Saturday. I'm sorry. The Sunday morning, we had Dennis in the car, Dennis Neal, who is now a reality TV star.
What's he do?
He's with R3R racing with.
They do the WRL thing.
Yeah, WRL.
Right.
Yeah, Dennis drove for us and still will. Lonnie Unser is there, obviously, and she drove for us. But he was in the car Sunday morning. We got going back onto the infield. I think it was turn 13, where you're in the IndyCar turn 2, and you between 1 and 2, and you come back into the infield. He just got blasted on the right-hand side and caved the rocker in, the door. Yep. And we were able to finish the day.
Yeah.
We replaced some suspension parts and went back out and finished. But that my point is, you guys aren't allowing cars to run at the Ozarks unless you practice Friday.
Yeah.
I believe the car that hit us didn't run on Saturday. So he was there for the first time Sunday. And as you know, braking on the oval was really, really difficult. They grind the track to make it smooth, and it really caught everybody out for braking coming into turn 1 and into turn 13. So whoever decided on this Ozark deal, they did the right thing, because
the track actually suggested it, and then as we're driving around the track, it was like, holy crap! It reminds me of Calabogie up in Canada, where every corner kind of looks the same because of the tree. It's in the middle of a forest, and there's really not many landmarks that you can actually look for. They all every corner almost look the same, and it's like, man, I'm going to get lost here. And it took I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 stints for me to get used to Calabogie, where I could actually go and actually do some quick laps. Well, Bill Strong quick laps, but and Dana thought the same thing in Chelsea is that we really need to get these guys out here practicing, and that Friday practice will be mandatory, that you have to get your car out there, or you're going to get hurt. I mean, not hurt, but you're going to be caught out.
Yeah.
Like at
big disadvantage.
Yeah. Big disadvantage. So give everybody a chance to learn the track.
That's a good idea. And NCM to me took a while to learn. There's 23 corners there, and that took a little bit. And Ozark looks like it's going to be that much more.
Once I realized, somebody had told me that NCM, he goes, look at the back part of the track. It's like a mirror image of the other side of the track. You attack it the same way. It's not, but it kind of looked like it. Once I looked at it like that, I was like, oh, okay, I get this. So
yeah. So Bernie, after all those years in the first iteration of ChampCar, and now in the current iteration of ChampCar, tell us what brings. Well, I know what brought you to ChampCar the first time. You wanted to go race at Indy. What keeps you around? What do you enjoy about racing with ChampCar?
Several things. I mean, I enjoy building the car. I mean, the first time I got introduced to endurance racing, like everybody else, I went to a Lemons race.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, John Welch, who was a data engineer on the race team for a long time. He was with the Blue Shell since about 2010.
Well, wait a second. John is also a epic Toyota MR2 guy.
That's right. You should know that.
Oh yeah, he is considered one of the original top shelf guys. I want to say God, but he's a top shelf guy in the MR2 world. So okay, back to your story.
Yeah, John's a smart guy. I mean, if you got a guy that's good with the computer and software and a keyboard and hardware and all that, John will beat him. I mean, he's pretty quiet about his daytime jobs, but he does some pretty miraculous things with a computer. He's really, really smart. But they were racing at the Autobahn. Lemon was, so I went there on a Friday test day with John and the Blue Shells, and standing up in that pagoda that's looking over pit lane. And I'm watching these guys, and I'm thinking, oh my God, where has this been my whole life? I should have started this 10 years ago. So I'm a Ford guy, so I had to build a Ford, and Mustang obviously was the first decision, but I didn't want a rear wheel drive car. It's endurance racing. You can't make mistakes. You can't go off. It's got to be reasonably easy to drive, reliable. So we built a Focus, and I didn't know there was even that an SVT Focus existed. So I was never into front wheel drive cars and any of that. So that's the platform that we picked. And we built a car for that next season. The first race we did was a Lemons race. And first and all, I should say we did 2 Lemons races, first and last. The themes and that and all the penalties and all that I wasn't really into that. So we did ChampCar after that. and I've been doing that ever since. And the very first race we went to with ChampCar again was the Autobahn. And everybody was telling me, your first race, you're going to have a water leak. You're going to have an oil leak. Something's going to fall off. It's going to be unreliable. Well, that was the year that we ran the South course, right, and then the full course that evening, which was a lot of fun. It was a blast to have a track configuration change done. But we ran all day long and finished, we won our class and finished second overall, I think it was. And then a few weeks after that, we're at Elkhart Lake running on Sunday in the rain. Yeah. With all these, 60 cars, 70 cars, everybody, all these big horsepower rear wheel drive car. We ran second until like 16 minutes to go. We had an electrical problem. We ended up third, I think. We got dropped back a little bit. We won our class again and finished third overall. So here we are with this little, front wheel drive car. But I think my IndyCar experience helped with caster and camber and reduction of weight and all that. So to me, I get to drive in all the iconic tracks that I raced at. My first lap at Elkhart, I was almost in tears. I mean, we went for 20-something years racing in IndyCar, and I'm always fixing crashed cars and fixing gearboxes and driver mistakes we're correcting. James Hinsclift, he had a bad accident at Indy where he had a wishbone go through his leg, and he had a lot of recovery to do. His first race was Elkhart Lake. And over the radio, his first laps, he told the crew, I'm not coming in. Because he enjoyed it so much. That's the first thing I did. The first lap I went by the pit lane, I screamed at the guys that I'm not coming in. Because it was just, I remember Elkhart's an iconic track. Yeah. But to be able to go there and drive it was amazing. Watkins Glen. Yeah. I mean, Elkhart was my favorite track, and it still is right up there. But Watkins Glen, it was just so much fun to run there. And NCM, and we haven't done Sebring yet in Daytona. I want to get to Laguna some year. So you get to drive all these great places that I've never dreamt I could have been at. And that's a builder's series where you can take a car that you decide you want to run, lighten it up, be creative within the rules, do some things that, you get the car right. I mean, you make it reliable. That's number one. You make it to where all your drivers can drive it without going off and get the black flag. So those are the two things to me. I enjoy, that's what I do now is fab cars, build hot rods and build not Indy cars, but I did a couple of fab jobs for Coyne a couple of years ago. We can get to that maybe in a little bit, but it just sparked racing to me again. That's why I said, where's this been my whole life? The strategy on during the race, pit stops, when you come in, it all went back to me, brought back IndyCar memories, because it's the decimal points in a different place, or the comma is in a different place, but the enjoyment of it is still the same. So that time when you were at Elkhart Lake and you had radioed into the pit, it was funny because I was talking to this guy in your pit lane. So how's he doing out there? And he said, he doesn't want to come in. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. And I said, well, what's your name? And, and he said, John Welch. And I'm just like, wait, Welch, are you Squelch? And he goes, yeah, yes, Bill Strong. I'm like, holy cow. Cause we had John MR2 guy for years as Squelch on our forum. And it was like, wow, I'm standing here in front of a legend and didn't realize it interviewing him for your race. But the funny part was he does not want to come in. And that just had me cracking up. Yeah, I think we had an electrical, we ended up blowing a main fuse. We didn't know at the time, but we came in and you had commented on it, how our crew wasn't panicking and throwing things and scrambling. They just took away my story. They took away my story. But we had to fix it. We had to troubleshoot it. We had to fix it. I ended up jumping power lead with an alligator clip, and we went out and finished the race. Unfortunately, we lost a couple of positions, but everybody worked hard together for the few minutes it took to do it, and we got the problem solved and back way up. But from all the racing and miles we've done and troubles we've had, we all worked together. I mean, I've known John so long, and even the guys we had gelled so quickly together, and they always have since, with drivers coming and going, that we kept everything under control and got it fixed. So with your vast experience in racing at all levels,
What do you see as the biggest issue with ChampCar right now, other than Bill Strong?
Well, first off, I think Bill Strong is just fine. I mean, you guys do a great job with ChampCar Live. You know, you guys got, honestly, you have to give yourself some more credit. You know, it's fun every now and then when they pick on Bill Strong and that, but man, you guys just do a great job of coverage. I've listened to some other endurance series coverage, and it's just god awful. I mean, you can't really listen to it, but you guys do a great job with pit lane and interviews and whatnot. Getting back to your question, you know, I've tried to run for the board a couple of times and have miserably failed. But I want to run, and I'll probably try again because I enjoy ChampCar so much. I want to contribute to try and keep things on a steady path and keep them corrected. And I think our first races in 18, we traveled to races on an open trailer. All our tools were in the back of a pickup truck, and here we were on the podium. Mm-hmm. A lot of that's went away. I mean, right now there's every year there seems to be parts that are free. Things change. The fuel tank rule this year, as an example. Now you have to have 2 gallons over stock, including the inlets.
Well, you're allowed. You don't have to have it.
Right, exactly.
You're allowed. And we want to stress that because somebody on the board will come back and say, "Well, Bill Strong said I had to have 2 gallons."
But there was a rule in place that you had to go from point A to point B and not make a loop around the trunk area or the car. The rule should have been enforced instead of having to write a new rule. So there's some little things that are wrong, so to speak, with ChampCar, but there's so many things that are right. I mean, all the tracks that you go to, ChampCar Live, the rule book is reasonably easy to understand. There's some things that, change is always hard.
Yeah.
But I think for if I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I'd stay home and work on my hot rod. But
what is your most favorite part, other than the driving and not wanting to come in? What is your most favorite part of building a car for ChampCar or working on a ChampCar team?
Well, I enjoy fab work to start with. Making roll cages, making doodads, making aluminum panels, dash pads, panels, seat mounts, anything that has to do with fabricating, mounting fuel cells, all the safety equipment. I enjoy building cars. As a crew chief, as a team manager, I always worked on the cars. I built countless oil tanks and did all kinds of aluminum welding and making things for the cars, brackets to hold things in place, pit equipment. I've always done fab work. I've always been my whole life. I've always done a lot of welding and repair and whatnot. So building cars is part of the fun of ChampCar. Again, there's no minimum weights, so you spend a month.
Oh yeah.
Drilling out little tiny tabs, cutting out door panels, every little ounce you could take. It's free horsepower.
Yeah.
You have better acceleration, better braking. A lot of my experience with safety wire and Loctite, just simple things that, make a car keep going. Welds the exhaust on properly. Safety wise, I put a foot box, a padded foot boxes in the front of the Focus. Nobody puts a foot box in a AMD car's got them, NASCAR has them, so everybody's got them. But it's a safety thing I thought was well worth having. When Dennis got clobbered at Indy on Sunday, he went to work the next day. He felt his legs hitting the padding on the inside of the foot box. So I felt good that we were in a crash, which was bad, but hey, I kept the driver safe. And and with IndyCar, safety's always been a huge aspect of what IndyCar always did. If there was a particular crash that brought up a problem with the chassis or the car or the track, IndyCar was very fast. CART was very fast to make some improvements. So I learned from that also. And a lot of the things we did in the cockpit, I do in the cockpit of our Focus of our ChampCar. So again, ChampCar's brought back a ton of IndyCar experience and memories and from what we've done from there. And it's helped us with some success. I think it was 2018. We had a lot of mechanical issues because I just didn't know enough about a front wheel drive car. We had engine mounts that were moving and it was damaging headers and exhaust. Mm-hmm. But, we got to figure it out. And one thing I'm proud of is every time we've taken the car out, it's gotten better. Nice. Braking's gotten better. Cornering's gotten better. Acceleration's gotten better. And that's the fun part to me. Is developing a car just like we did back in the IndyCar days.
What is the number one thing you see down pit lane in a ChampCar race that that you see people doing wrong?
You might not want to share that.
Well, there's more people, more of them have them now. A lot of guys didn't have radios early on. That's a simple thing. Get brake pads that's going to last the whole race. Don't change brake pads or wheel bearings. Do your homework.
Wait. The wheel bearing thing might not be up to the guys. It may be just a weakness within that chassis. Well, I know that for a fact.
True. That's true, Bill. But yeah, there was a couple seasons here where me and Ron Snow, who helped me finance the Focus, we ran the stock car races here at Grundy County Speedway. We did. Right. I was the chief steward for midget racing before that with the short track auto racing series, and then I did a season of Friday nights with the stock cars. And I'd go down to the pit lane, and guys are unloading their cars and working on them, doing the maintenance they should have done during the week.
Yeah.
So I think there was not so much now. With Lemons race we did and the few early Champ Car races, you got to do your maintenance at home. I mean, it just makes the weekend so much more fun. A bearing will fail, yeah, but if you don't replace it and don't re-grease it, the chances of having a failure is going to be escalated quite a bit. So you got to do your homework at the shop.
That was one of the things that we were never told, that parts life out, that you just, you have to replace them every so many hours. And so that thing had, that part has 25 hours worth of life in it. You should replace it at 18 because it could be plus or minus. I didn't know anything about that stuff until, I think Troy Trulio from Biohazard, he had actually talked to me about that a few times, and I didn't know race teams did that. It's just nothing I knew. You run it until it stops.
Yeah, we had extensive records with the IndyCar of keeping track of mileage. Every practice session, every race, every qualifying session. Engines, we change them every 400 miles. That's what the life expectancy was on the Cosworth, Ford Cosworth. Mm-hmm. Cosworth would actually, quote unquote, guarantee the engine for us for 400 miles. If something catastrophic happened, they would replace it. Unless we ran it out of water or ran it out of oil. Right. If it was a failure, they would cover the costs. If you're getting over 400 miles, you had to sign a paper saying that you're responsible for it. Turbos would go like 2,500 miles. Fuel pumps like 1,200 miles. Our $10,000 thin wall Inconel exhaust system, which cost $10,000, would last 3,500 miles. Bearings, everything you had to have mileage of, and you had to have the stuff on the shelf. Half shafts, U-joints, everything had a certain miles to it. And a lot of that made it difficult for us. We'd, a turbo, you can go 1,200 miles, so to speak, or 2,200 miles. Well, there'd be 200 miles left on it. We'd leave it in the car to run Friday practice, just so we can get the mileage out of it and use it.
Right.
And we'd end up changing the turbo on Friday night or a fuel pump on Saturday night, along with the engine, which left to a lot of extra work that we had to do on race weekends. Things are today in the Indy cars a little different. It's a big spec series now. Engines go 2,400 miles or so. The cars are big tanks. Our suspension was 40,000 thick aircraft streamline tubing. Now they're big beefy machines that can go wheel to wheel and bang each other and keep going. So things are a little different now. But that's how we learned how to mileage parts out. And every race, the car gets brake pads, needed or not. Keep them for a practice session if you want. All new wheel bearings, change the oil, look at the gearbox, just have a quick look at everything. It doesn't take long. And there's nothing like having your weekend ruined by something you could have done back at the shop.
Well, that was, I think, in the early days of ChampCar, even parts of, I've done about 17 Lemons races along with, 65, 70 ChampCar races. But back in the early days, like you said, a lot of guys trailered their cars out there on an open trailer or whatever. And they basically took a car straight off a junkyard or some Craigslist sale or whatever, threw a roll cage in it, put some oil in it, and went racing, and either made it or didn't. And if the car failed, 2 months later, you'd see them there with a Subaru doing the same thing. And then 5 months later, they'd show up to the next race with an Oldsmobile. I mean, it was just people were moving around. Then, when I came up with our MR2, that one of the first races we went to, that I was told the car didn't look like a chump car because we had applied, basically house paint over it to make it look yellow. and that I had mentioned about replacing all the bushings and all the bearings, and everything was all brand new in there. And some people looked at me like, this is not ChampCar. This is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run what you brung. And now you show up to the races and guys are doing what you're saying is every bit of that car has been gone through before the race. They've replaced everything, time and out parts, which some people said that just brings up the cost of racing. But to me, it was like, we got to race a full race because we did change out those parts.
Is part of that born out of that there's a lot of arrive and drive type situations, and people who are paying to come to race are expecting a car to go the distance. And if you don't come more prepared to the track, these people who are giving you probably hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars to come racing, are going to want their money back.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we had. I mean, there was a couple of races where we had some issues, and Troy's telling me, dude, these guys are talking bad. You're just not bringing a prepared car. And it's like, more money. But, you guys do quite well. You prepare it. There's a lot of other teams out there that do the same thing. But that kind of preparation has made the fields much faster because guys are sticking with chassis. They're developing them. They're developing their engines, getting them to last these miles and spending money. How do you stop that? Or can you? You
can't stop it. You could slow it down a little bit maybe, but you can't stop it. It's tough to come up with rules that look into the future. You don't know how things are going to progress. It's hard to predict what's going to happen down the road, but you're not going to stop it. I mean, I did some aero work on our black car that they ran at the Autobahn last year, and they picked up like 3 seconds, and that's what I'm doing to our car now. So as the car progresses, and people get a little more savvy and do their homework and add to according to what the rules are, add to the car to make it better. That's always going to be there. So it's tough to stop what the cost. People are always going to spend it. I mean, if you got $1,000, you're going to spend it on something. It doesn't matter if it's brake pads or a data acquisition system or aero. But that's so far. If ChampCar wasn't as economical as it was, we couldn't afford to do it.
Now
there's no doubt in that. I mean, again, getting back to why we do it, to run the courses we do, and be able to build the car on that. If it wasn't as affordable as it is, I bought our car for $1,000, our Focus. I sold $500 worth of parts out of it. And granted, I built everything myself. I spent $6,500 on safety equipment and a roll cage and did all the work myself. You could spend that much money on a go-kart.
Yeah.
A go-kart could cost you $8,000, $10,000.
Absolutely.
We ran 6,000 race miles before we had our first big accident. 6,000 race miles. So is there bumping and banging? A little bit of that we had. I don't like bent up cars, so we had a crumpled up fender that I replaced and a bumper cover.
You didn't bang it out like I did all mine. Mine was so thin from banging out. There was, you just looked at it would bend.
Yeah, but so I enjoy a nice looking car, and again, we went 6,000 miles without ever having an incident. That's crazy.
Yeah.
To be able to go that far without having any major damage. We could have went out and had a big wreck at 100 miles, but our luck was on our side. The guys did a good job of staying out of trouble, and if we tore a car up every year, that'd be a different story. But for the most part, I think there's a lot of clean driving out there. There's a lot of arrive and drive guys that should have a little more experience than they do. But for the most part, ChampCar is very safe, and it's reasonably economical for the amount of time that we have in a car.
So where's the future of Blue Shells right now? Where are you guys headed?
There's some updates I'm doing. We didn't do any races in 2020. I didn't in the silver car. The guys with the black car went to the Autobahn, and I think they did Barber maybe. So I'm just repairing the car now from our Indy crash. I took I think I posted on one of the forum pages under technical. I drilled out all the spot welds in the quarter panel and took the quarter panel off and hammered and dollied all the dents out of it. I remade the inner rocker, and so I'm doing all that to the car. I bought a wing from Nine Lives, or a Wang. Got a Wang.
So you're a Wang guy?
I put that on. I made some swan mount wing mounts for that and put that on the car. We'll put a front splitter on it. After the Indianapolis deal, I bought the car that had 184,000 miles on the engine. And then we put 6,000 race miles on top of that. So I felt the time to freshen up the engine, which John Welch took care of that end up for me. He's a big overhead.
So now I'm going to have to check the heck out of that engine now. I have the tools.
So we'll, do our regular maintenance and do some aero work. And then we're going to get back out there this year and run again. The black guys with the black Focus, they had, that's an SVT also. And they had some horrible mechanical problems. Mm-hmm. They blew up every time they went out. They lost an engine for one reason or another, fuel problems, oiling problems, or whatever.
Do you think they're just pushing this hardware? Once you get to a point, when you first start this type of racing, you tend to start off easy and conserving stuff, and then you start getting those little trophies, and it's like, now we have to push a little harder. Do you see yourself and even other teams doing the same thing to the point of you're going beyond the design limitations of the cars?
I don't think we've done that. I think, we understand, the engine revs at 7,200 red line, we shift at 68. So it's not, I think that's beating on it. It's 6,800 RPM every shift. You're hitting curbs. You want to, the guys should need to stay off the curbs, but every now and then you'll put a wheel off or hit. Curbing is not part of the racing surface, Phil. So, and
they kept telling me that at VIR, but it was the fastest line.
So I think we've always pushed the car hard, and you always had to. But I think the SVT engine, it's 2 liters, it's 4-valve. Cosworth made the cylinder head. Cosworth did an extruded stainless steel header for it. 6-speed gear tag transmission, big brakes, nice struts, big spring. It's a great platform to start with. So it's our first race. I put a polyurethane transmount on it, claimed 10 points.
Yeah.
So we had a 385 point car. Since then, I put Heim joints in the rear to get camber, polyurethane engine mounts, and that's it.
Do you get any help from Ford or Cosworth with direction, or maybe you might want to look in this area because we found it a weakness in the European touring car or whatever or rally when they race the Focus over there?
I still keep in touch with a lot of the Cosworth guys. They all branched off into other things now, right. But the road car program was a little bit different than the race program, so it wasn't always necessarily the same people involved. Kind of off track here a little bit, but the Cosworth, the factory we visited while we were racing in England, is just absolutely amazing. They do everything in-house, everything. Yep. Their own crankshafts, their own casting department, their own electronics, wiring harnesses. They make their own little carbon panels to hold boxes and things. If a crankshaft breaks at an IndyCar race, they stop the production and make a radius different in the crankshaft. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how fast they can react to things. So
there's a really good video on YouTube where they're I think it was like the early 80s when Cosworth was moving over to the turbocharged V8s or turbocharged engines, and they were having some serious issues. But the whole documentary was how they went through the development of this engine, which is really good.
Cool.
Yeah, referring back to the IndyCar day again. Sorry, there was so much competition between Toyota and Chevrolet and Ilmor and Cosworth that everybody had to have an advantage. In the mid '90s, the engine weighed 285 pounds, made 950 horsepower. They had you couldn't have an intercooler, but they injected methanol into the inlet of the turbo with 4 injectors. We'd run a big turbo at Michigan and Indy and Pocono, the big tracks, because it made more horsepower. And then we had to run a smaller turbo on the road courses to spool up the turbo right away. So they put a turning vane on the inlet of the turbo, much like a camera shutter. The vanes would open and close, and it would just simply change the direction and swirl the air into the turbo. So we were able to run a big turbo everywhere.
So it's like a VNT, like a variable nozzle, right?
Yeah.
Garrett did
exactly.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
And it would speed up the air going in the turbo, so we could run a big turbo, take advantage of the horsepower, and still run it on the street courses and short ovals. So they were always developing, electronics. When full throttle shifting came about, that was a big advantage. every time you shifted a car with an H-pattern gearbox, it would take you 100 feet to get back to where you were. But now with the sequential gearbox, it was like 40 because you wouldn't lose the RPM, you wouldn't lose the turbo boost. It was just the technical aspect of all that stuff back at that time was just really incredible, amazing to me. You couldn't run an automatic gearbox, but they had some software where a driver in a straight line could pull on the shift lever, and then the gearbox would shift when it hit a certain RPM. So you could hit your revs, 12.2, 12.4, right exactly at when it hit that RPM limit. We were running upwards of almost 14,000 RPM. Toyota was rumored to having 16,000.
Yeah.
So things were just really, really crazy.
Yeah.
Both in the chassis end and engine end. And all of that, when I was building our Focus, a lot of that in the back of your mind comes into play.
Right.
Because, I took everything apart on that car when we first built it and went through everything and changed things to make it reliable. Urethane bushings where they needed to be, lubricants. It was Joe Gibbs oil. Now it's called Driven. That's the only thing that we use in the car. We use Redline in the gearbox, but that's the only oil that we ever use. And I think that's helped for us to keep our 6,000 race mile engine still running. So all those things that, I learned over the years in open wheel racing have translated into endurance racing. So
I hate to be the guy who jumps in here, but we try to keep this podcast to an hour, and we haven't done the first half of the podcast yet, and we're at an hour and 2 minutes. So, Bernie, I think at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up and then say we're going to get together again down the road, because I could talk with you for hours, honestly. And I want to think maybe we do a podcast with Bernie, Bill, where we just talk about if you're a new crew chief putting a car together for ChampCar.
Yeah.
Let's go through the steps, because I don't think anybody's probably better to talk about that than Bernie. How's that sound?
Yeah, when it comes to race cars or Indy cars or hot rods or whatever, you can't shut me up. So.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. I don't know how I'm going to cut this thing up, because we're going to definitely have to do a bonus.
Well, wait a second,
here.
Bernie. If people want to contact you and ask you for some tips or whatever, how do they get a hold of you?
My email is Bernie's Rods and Customs, all plural, at gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. You can find Bernie Myers, Myers. You can find me on Facebook. Blue Shells has a Facebook page. So I'm I'll give you my phone number if you want, but
no.
We don't want to put that in.
My email and
because I'll call you at like 2 a.m. just to say, hey, Bernie, how you doing?
and honestly, there's a Focus team in Florida, bent pistons or broken pistons or something like that. I told them everything we broke and everything that we replaced with. They did Sebring, I think, was their first race. They did all but the last 20 minutes.
So they broke.
I was happy to help out another team and
nice.
and teach them some of the things that we had learned, so they could go out.
So Sebring was their first race.
I believe it was.
That is I'm doing finger quotes here, a shakedown race.
Literally. I thought it was a shake-up race.
Yeah, both.
I love it.
And down.
I love it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this portion of this episode. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what's coming up next week on Inside ChampCar. You are listening to the Racing Wire Podcast Network.
Inside ChampCar is a podcast that takes a deep dive into all things going on with the ChampCar Endurance Series. Hosted by veteran journalist, radio host, and racer Brian Bielanski, and ChampCar's very own Bill Strong, we talk to drivers, team bosses, tech gurus, and series supporters. Episodes air every week in time for you to listen on your way to the track. Inside ChampCar is on the Racing Wire Podcast Network, found on Apple, Spotify, Google, and most popular podcasting apps.
Welcome back to Inside ChampCar. He's Bill Strong. I'm Brian Bielanski. Time to wrap this one up, Bill. We had what a great talk with Bernie.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. I mean, it's just, he gave away so much secret info. Oh wait, no, he didn't. I did forget when you told me to stop talking. You're like, give me hand signs. I cut it, across the throat. I'm like, dude, my next question was, what were the best Porta-Johns at Indy? Completely forgot to ask him that one.
I have a Porta-John story that I can tell. Should I? It's
why not?
Terribly PC. Anyway, so I'm at a NASCAR race. I'll do this real fast. I'm at a NASCAR race at Atlanta. This is in the middle 90s, and I'm working pit lane as a journalist, and these two people, a man and a woman, go into the Porta-John together, and the Porta-John starts moving around a little bit. And all of the guys on pit row have noticed this is going on. And they start taking lug nuts, the crew members, and throwing them at the Porta-John while these two people are enjoying themselves, let's just say. And it was the funniest thing. And then, of course, when they got out, the entire pit lane gave them a round of applause. And those things don't happen as much these days at the racetrack.
Especially with camera. Everybody has a camera now. Everybody has a camera.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't have told that story. Anyway.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right. So next week, what's coming up next week, Bill?
Hey, we have Hiller Calda. I can never pronounce his name, even on pit lane.
That's why I asked you to do it.
Champ. We have the guys from Momo Champ on next week. Momo Champ, longtime ChampCar racers. At one point, they were Momo Chump. One of the coolest looking cars on the track, a little Miata painted up in Momo steering wheel, the steering wheel shifters. They do all kinds of other stuff, their color scheme, and really good guys, down to earth. They're one of the low budget teams, even though their cars are kind of cool looking. They're one of the core teams of ChampCar. And it's going to be really cool talking to those guys. They did really well at Road Atlanta, and we'll see them soon here.
All right. I think that's going to do it. Any parting thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I think VIR is going to be pretty awesome. And right after that, we head to Texas, and going to be a fun time, man. ChampCar is just starting to wind up.
There we go. That's going to do it for another episode of Inside ChampCar. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any episodes. It would also be
wait. I got one. So you can go to our website now, champcar.org. I've completely redesigned the website. You can click on the little buttons for podcasts, and it takes you straight to all the podcasts for us. Really simple place to find us. And sorry, go back, finish your show, man.
That's okay. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any episodes. It'd also be great if you would share it on your social media channels so we can get the word out. You can also comment on the ChampCar Facebook page, especially if it's a good one. If you don't like the show, put the comment on someone else's Facebook page. A new episode every week. He's Bill Strong. I'm Brian Bielanski, and you're listening to the Racing Wire Podcast Network.